Hello, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Today, we're going to be looking at how a teacher would set and mark homework using Moodle. As you know, we're using Google Hangouts on air, so if you have any questions while I go through stuff, feel free to post any questions using the chat facility built into Google Hangout. And at the end, I'll have a look at the questions you might have, and we'll go through a little Q&A session. If you have any questions afterwards, after this webinar, make a note of my email address, which you can see just in the middle there. You can always email anything through to me, and I'll do my best to get back to you. So what is a Moodle assignment? Essentially, an assignment in Moodle is used for setting homework or coursework for your students. It's a place for students to hand in their work, so they can submit documents online, or they can write into Moodle using the Moodle text editor. So it's very flexible. You can choose the type of submission that you want your students to make. You can set due dates for your students as well, so you can set a due date, and that due date will appear in the student's calendar in Moodle, so they'll be able to see all their homework which is due for the future. Any homework that they may have missed, that kind of thing, they can see within their calendar as well. It's a great place for students to provide them with feedback and grades. Grades and feedback are stored within the Moodle gradebook, which the teacher can always export, and the teacher can also choose to grade online or offline. So sometimes there might be an offline activity that you might want to create and just do the marking online in the assignment. So the assignment is fairly flexible and allows you to do offline grading as well. Okay, so in the walkthrough, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be logging in as a teacher, first of all, and the first stage will involve me setting some homework for my students. The second stage will be logging in as a student, and then making a submission within the assignment activity which I create. And finally, what I will do is I'll log in as a teacher again and grade the online submission which has been submitted by the student. Okay, so yeah, it's time for the walkthrough now. So I'm just going to close this presentation, and I'm going to go into our demo Moodle here, which you should be able to see. So you can see I'm on the home page of our Moodle site. I'm logged in as a teacher, and I have a tile here called Global Hazards, which takes me to my course, which I'll be using today. I can also use my courses menu here at the top here, and you can see I've got a geography course here. So this is the course I'll be using today, and at the very top, because I'm logged in as a teacher, I have a button called Turn Editing On. So the first thing I need to do is click this button, and then I need to decide which section my homework will go into. So I have a couple of sections here at the top, and I have a section labeled the disaster risk equation. So I'm going to add my homework into this particular section. So at the very bottom of this section, there's a plus button here. On a standard Moodle, you'll have a link called Add an Activity or Resource, which you'll need to click. But this does the same thing. So I'm just going to click on this plus button here, and you can see all the different activities and resources that we can choose. Today we're using the assignment tool. So this is the tool that we use to create homework. And I'm just going to click Add here. And then Moodle provides you with a form to fill out. So the first option is assignment name. So this is where you would add the name of the assignment, which would appear on the course page itself. Okay, so I'm just going to label it homework, and I'm going to call it something like risk perception in California. Okay, now the next section is labeled description. This is where you would put the criteria of what you want your students to do within this tool, within this assignment. So you've got a text editor here that you can utilize. So I've got some text already prepared here. So I've got this text document open here. So I'm just going to copy and paste the criteria into this description box. And you can see I've also added a couple of links there. So there's a link to an article which I want my students to read, and there's also a link to a YouTube video If I want to embed the YouTube video, what I can do is I can just remove the link and then type in the word video or something like that, and make it a link. So if I just highlight the text, click on the insert, create link option, and then paste in my URL, which is at the top here. Now that's become a link. You can see when I hover over it, it's a link now. And when I save my changes, Moodle will provide the student with a video, embedded video, a YouTube video for them to watch. So I'm asking my students to read the article that I've attached and also watch the video. And then based on what they watch, they have to answer the 3 questions which I've provided underneath. As well as the questions that are provided and the video, etc., I'm also going to provide my students with a worksheet, and I want them to download the worksheet and answer the template that I provided within the template that I provided. So there's an option here called additional files. So this is where I would add all my supporting materials, any worksheets. So if it's a maths piece of work, you could add your maths worksheet up here, and the student would download the worksheet on their computer, fill in the document, and then upload it back into Moodle for the teacher to mark it. Okay, so I'm just going to add my worksheet here, which I have in my desktop here. So I'm just going to make this window a bit smaller so I can just drag and drop my worksheet. So there's a file here called worksheet.doc. So I'm just going to drag and drop that in here. So you can see that's now been uploaded. And as a teacher now, I've set my criteria, I've provided my file, a worksheet, and I can now provide my student with a deadline. So the deadline will be 25th of May, so that's enabled, which is next Wednesday. And I'm going to allow submissions from, well, I'm just going to make it open so my pupil can make a submission straight away. I could set a date in future, but that's entirely up to you. So I'm just going to disable that option for now. There is also the option for a cutoff date, but this is rarely used because when the cutoff date arrives, the student won't have the option to upload a file. Whereas the due date, if the due date passes, the student can upload a file. However, as a teacher, you'll be able to see that it's been submitted late, and you'll be able to mark them down for that if needs be. Okay, underneath here we have submission type. So this is how we want our students to submit their work. So we have video, audio submission, which is a third-party option. But on a standard Moodle, you'll see 2 options, which will be file submissions and online text. So okay, file submissions means that the student must upload a file into Moodle, and the teacher can then mark that file online. Whereas the online text option is used for essays. So a student would be presented with a window which will be very similar to this description box here at the top, and the student would type in their response into a window rather than upload a file, and they can use the tools up in the toolbar here within the text editor provided. So that's online text. The useful option with online text is that you can enable a word limit. So you can see, because I've got online text enabled, I can now enable a word limit here as well and set a word limit of, let's say, 500 words, and that way I can make sure that the students won't exceed that threshold. So I'm just going to remove the word limit. I'm also going to remove the online text because I want my students to upload a file, and the file will be the worksheet which I provided, and they'll use that as a template. So there's only one file that I want them to upload, and there's also a file size limit here, which we can always increase. Okay, once you've chosen your submission types, there are lots of other options here, but the only one that you need to work on next is grade. So how you want to grade your piece of work. So if you've got grading scales enabled, you can use a grading scale such as attitude to learning, that kind of thing. So giving them a grade of 1 to 5 rather than a maximum of 100. If you haven't got scales set up, you can use points, which is a simple enough approach. And to simplify it even more, I'm going to just grade this piece of work out of 10. So you can see that maximum points has now been set to 10. And I'm also going to set a grade to pass. So if my students achieve a 7, then within the gradebook, they'll be able to see that they've passed the work, and it'll be highlighted in green. If they achieve a mark lower than 7, in the gradebook, it'll be highlighted red, which basically means they haven't passed that particular homework. Okay, so that's an optional field. You don't have to always populate that. And as a teacher now, if I just do save and return to course, I've done my bit as a teacher. I've set my homework. I've given it a due date, which I can see. So in the upcoming events block now, I can see there's a piece of homework which is due on Wednesday, 25th of May. And that homework is that assignment that I've just created. So we should be able to see that down here. So under our case studies, we've got a piece of homework now. And when my students click on the homework, they'll be able to see the criteria. So they can see the title, they can see the link to the article here, and they can also see the video which I've provided them. And then they can see the 3 questions that I've added here. As well as that, there's a link to download the worksheet which I've provided. And as a teacher, I can see the grading summary here. So I can always come back to this page and see if my students have made any submissions, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log in as a student, and going to participate within this assignment and make a submission. So I'm just going to log out here very quickly. So I'll come back to the login page, and I'm going to log in as a student. Okay, so you can see now I'm logged in as a student named Jimmy Abbey, and if I click on my courses, you can see a list of all the courses that the students enrolled on. So if I click on the geography course, I can see I have access to that course as well, and I can go into my section and view the homework within the section itself, which is at the bottom here, or I can also use various other options, such as the upcoming events block, which shows me the latest events within this particular course. So I can access the homework this way. I can also access the homework using my calendar. So you can see the 25th of May is highlighted, and when I hover over it, you can see there's a homework activity due on the 25th. So I can click on my homework. So that takes you straight to the homework. I can see the criteria. And if I wanted to make a submission, all I do is click on the homework title, and then there's a button at the bottom here which allows me to add a submission. So the first thing I want to do is download the worksheet. So click on the worksheet, and that's coming and downloaded onto my computer here. I'm going to open my document, and you can see in the criteria that the teachers requested that this worksheet is submitted as a PDF document. The reason for that is because if you submit a PDF document into Moodle, the teacher can annotate that PDF online in using the Moodle's PDF annotation tool, which is a great way of providing your students with feedback. So your students would basically populate their responses into here. And so if I just go to, I'll just grab some text from a website, populate. So I'm just going to grab a paragraph of text here. So it's just a bit of Latin text I'm going to use within this assignment, purely because it's just an example. So you can see I'm adding my response here. Okay, and all I'm going to do now is file and save as. So I've added my I've done my homework. I'm just going to make sure it's saved as a PDF. So when I do file and save as, I've got the option to change the format from a Word document to a PDF. So I'm just going to call it homework.pdf. And as a student, I've saved my work. So it's very easy to save Word documents, PowerPoints. I think you should be able to do Excel documents as well. Any spreadsheets, you should be able to save in PDF format. So once you've saved it as PDF format, you can now upload that document into Moodle. So there's a blue button here which says Add Submission. And if I scroll down, you can see there's now a little window here which allows the student to upload their file. So the student can either click on the first icon here to add a file, or they can drag and drop their file here, which is much easier. So I've got a file here somewhere, downloads, called homework.pdf, which I've just converted into a PDF. And I'm just going to click and drag that into my section here. So you can see it's got the PDF icon, so it's definitely a PDF document. And as a student now, all I need to do is click on Save Changes. Once you've saved changes, the teacher of the course is sent an email from Moodle to let them know that a certain student has made a submission, and they can then grade the piece of work. So if I click on, if you come down here, if you have a look at submission status rather, you can see that now it's changed to submitted for grading, which basically means that the students made a submission. It's not been graded just yet. They can see the time remaining, etc. And they can also see the file that they've uploaded. And when I submitted it, I didn't add any comments, which is fair enough. Because I've still got 6 days and 8 hours left to provide a submission, I've got the option to edit my submission and upload a second version of the file, an improvement, that kind of thing. So that's always a possibility as well. So as a student, I've done my bit. So all I'm going to do now is log out, and we're going to move on to stage 3 now, which is logging back in as a teacher and grading this piece of work. Okay, so I've logged back in as a teacher, and in my calendar on the 25th, because I'm the teacher of the course, I can see that I've added a piece of homework in the group in the geography course. So if I click on the event, I can always go straight into the assignment by clicking on the link at the top there. And if I scroll down underneath the criteria, I can see grading summary. And I can see there's 217 students within this course. Out of those 217, 1 submission has been made, which also needs to be marked. So there's a button here called View/Grade All Submissions. So if I click this, I can see at the very top here, my first student has made a submission, which is in green. If you've got lots of students, there are some filters at the bottom here. So you can choose to filter to show only submitted assignments. So if I do that, you can see there's only 1 entry here. So you can see all the assignments that have been submitted. What we can also do is if I just go back to no filter, if some students provide you with a decent excuse of why they haven't done their homework, you can grant them with an extension. So if I click on the edit icon, the edit menu here, I've got the option to provide an extension as well for an individual. That's something that you can do here. But to grade a piece of work, all you do is click on this grade icon. So I'm just going to click on this icon here. And the next page will show you the submission status for that piece of work for that student. And then we've got a grade out of 10 option here. So if you remember, when I created the assignment, I chose the maximum points to the number 10. So I'm grading it out of 10. And I've also got the option to provide my students with feedback as well. So I can put text and images, etc. in here, as well as multimedia. Because my students have uploaded a PDF document, I have this option here called Annotate PDF. So I can click on Launch PDF Editor. So that's the first thing I would do as a teacher, because I've not seen the work. The first thing I need to do is click on Launch PDF Editor, which will load the PDF in a new window here. So it's just loading it now. So you can see this is a piece of work that's been uploaded. And there are 2 pages as well. Okay, so as a teacher, what I can do is I can use these tools across the top here, and I can annotate the piece of work. So I can use a tool called Scribble, so I can scribble over any paragraphs of text, any spelling errors. There's also a marker area, that you can use as well, so you can mark or highlight certain words, like this. You can also add text onto like a post-it note, so you can choose the background color of the post-it note and then just click and drag and then add your response in here. So you can say something like, really good start. Okay, and then as soon as you click away, it's saved on there for you. You can also use ticks and crosses. So I've got a green tick and there's also the red cross. And you can also use a smiley and sad faces as well, which is an option available within the PDF annotation. So there's lots of different options. You can use shapes as well. Anything that you want to delete, you can just click on the cursor menu at the top here. And then if you click on one of the objects, you can just click on the bin icon and those annotations are then deleted. So once you've made the annotation, all you do is click on the red cross at the top corner here, and that closes the annotation editor. And you can see now underneath that there's a label called unsaved changes. So before I do anything, before I save my changes, I need to give this piece of work a grade. So I'm just going to give it a 7. So it's just passed, and feedback will be good start. Could do with some improvements. See me. Okay, so they're the comments that I want to add there. And there's also a little option here at the bottom called notify students. So as soon as I click on save changes, the student will be emailed from Moodle, and Moodle will provide them with a message to say that your work has been marked, and there will be a link in the email which will take them to Moodle to show them their grade, their feedback, and also the annotations made by the teacher. So I can click on save changes here, which will take me back to the homework summary, or I can click on save and show next if there's another piece of work that needs to be marked. So I'm just going to do save changes, and that piece of work has now been marked, so you can see the grade changes were saved. And as a teacher, I can go into my course. So I'm back into my course now, and I can view the grade book, which is in the administration block here. So there's an option called grades, and in grades we have all our pupil here, and we've got our pupil Jimmy, Abby at the top here. We can see all the different activities that can be graded, and if I go down to the end, there should be a homework which I've just created earlier on. So there's homework called risk perception, which I've just marked, and they received a grade of 7, and you can see it's in green, which basically means that it's been passed. So that's how it would appear in the grid book. You can use different views. So that was the grader report. You can also use a user report and look up individuals. So I've got a user report here. This is what it looks like, and I can select my students using this drop-down menu. So if I select Jimmy Abbey, I can see Jimmy's assignments and quizzes that are set in the in this course, and I can see all his grades as well as feedback. So all this data can be exported. So there's an option called export at the bottom here, so we can choose to export into an Excel spreadsheet. There's different formats that you can use, Excel spreadsheet being the most popular. Okay, so the final thing I want to do is, before I close, is log out and log back in as a student. So this just to show you how a student would see their grade, etc. So I'm just going to log back in as that student. Okay, so I'm back in, logged into my course. So I'm just going to click on global hazards this time. So I'm going to go in a different way, and I'm just going to go into upcoming events, click on the homework in here, and I can see now the submission status has changed to graded. And if I scroll down further, I can see my feedback. So the feedback is a grade of 7 out of 10. I can see when it was graded, what time it was graded. I can see the teacher who graded the piece of work. So sometimes there might be more than one teacher on a course, which is quite common. And underneath that, I can see feedback comments from the teacher and because it's a PDF, I can see a button here called View Annotated PDF, or I can download the PDF by clicking on this link here. So I'm just going to click on this button, and I can see the annotations that a teacher's made. So that's how it would appear to the student as well. Students can view their gradebook as well, which is within the administration block. So you can see there's a lot less options for the student. The only option they can see is grades, and as soon as they go to the gradebook, they can only see their own grades. So they can see all the different assignments and quizzes that are gradable, and they can see the grade and the feedback that they're achieving within within the gradebook. Okay, so that's the homework activity, the assignment tool. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you turn editing on and you use the assignment activity. And you just need to make sure you utilize the description box to add your description. Okay. So in the next webinar, which is going to be held on Thursday, the 9th of June, again, 3:30 p.m., we're going to be looking at how we evaluate student learning using the quiz activity. So today we use the assignment tool. In our next session, we're going to be using the quiz activity, which allows teachers to create their own quiz questions, and all the marking is done automatically. So we'll be using the quiz activity for the next session. Yeah, thank you for today. I'm just going to open up the Google Hangout just to see if there's any questions from you guys. So let's have a look. So there's no questions from you guys at the moment. I can see in the group chat there's no questions. But if you do have any questions, feel free to email me. So that's my email address just in the middle there. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you on the 9th of June again using Google Hangout. So you'll be sent another link via email. Feel free to sign up to that event, and yeah, we'll go through the quiz activity. So yeah, thanks again for today, and have a good evening. See you next time.